Right now, on to the point.
We're facing a $68 billion budget deficit.
But is the state of California cutting back? The plan expected to be announced tomorrow and how it could impact you. Sacramento City Council meets for the first time tonight since ex-council member Laloi's resignation. We're live with the latest. Plus, addressing the affordable housing crisis, ABC 10 gets an inside look at options in Roseville. And the push to solve a 32-year mystery tied to the Happy Face killer. They need your help.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. On to the point. I'm Alex Bell. And when you're having money problems, you have to look at where to cut back on spending. And right now, that's what the governor's office is doing. And tomorrow, they'll unveil their plan to address an estimated record-breaking $68 billion budget deficit. Tonight, Becca Habegger shows us what this deficit could mean for all of us and if the numbers really add up.
We're facing a $68 billion budget deficit.
Republican State Senator Roger Nilo of Fair Oaks is vice chair of the Senate Budget and Fiscal Review Committee. In a recorded video statement, he blasted lawmakers' spending in recent years as unsustainable.
Despite having a substantial surplus of $100 billion just 2 years ago, there wasn't enough caution among state lawmakers.
That $68 billion figure came from the Legislative Analyst's Office, the California legislature's nonpartisan fiscal and policy advisor. They released their report for the 2024-25 fiscal year last month. They found tax receipts that were lower than expected, with victims of severe winter storms given a tax filing extension until October.
We will have different numbers when the governor comes out with his budget.
H.D. Palmer, spokesperson for the California Department of Finance, says there is a significant problem to solve, but the actual deficit is much less than $68 billion. Plus, he says,
we do have a substantial amount of reserves that have been set aside for dealing with this type of a situation.
In order to tap into the nearly $24 billion in reserve funds, the governor would need to declare a fiscal budget emergency, something the Legislative Analyst's Office says he should do. Assembly Republicans agree, sending Newsom a letter this week urging him to declare a budget emergency and call for a special session to address the issue. But reserves alone wouldn't solve the problem. Already, Governor Newsom has put a pause on all non-essential spending, including on fleet vehicles and non-essential travel.
We may have to pull back on some one-time expenditures in the past that we can't sustain right now. So we will be looking to where we can make those types of savings while maintaining the core programs that are essential for Californians.
The Legislative Analyst's Office report offers several suggestions, even saying in facing budget problems of similar magnitudes, the state in the past has made reductions to employee compensation and lowered spending on higher education and the judicial branch. But nothing will be decided or set in stone anytime soon. Exactly where to cut spending will be something state lawmakers on both sides of the aisle hammer out in coming months.
And Becca joins us now. So tomorrow, the governor's budget proposal, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, Alex, that kicks off 5 months of revisions and hearings by committees and subcommittees. The nonpartisan Legislative Analyst's Office will come out with an analysis of the budget bill with recommended changes, usually by February. And then the Senate and Assembly budget committees will conduct budget hearings. There's a revised budget due in May, and ultimately California's Constitution requires state lawmakers to pass the budget by June 15th.
And the new budget is supposed to fund the state government starting in July, but a lot could change before then, right?
Yeah, Alex, I was reading up on all of this on the Department of Finance's website, and at the bottom we talked about this. There's this little thing that said, and here's the budget process portrayed in a relatively simple flowchart. So I clicked on that, and this is the Department of Finance's relatively simple flowchart.
You're probably making the same face that Becca and I made earlier today when she showed this. I was very unwell when I saw this flowchart, but I mean, it is a complicated process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many moving parts, rightfully so. California's a big state. There are a lot of things that need funding, right? And so this is just the due process of getting the state funded for another year.
Yeah, and we're reading it so you don't have to.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Becca. New tonight, the California State University System announced they will provide a 5% raise to faculty like librarians, counselors, and coaches. That starts at the end of the month. The California Faculty Association, the union that represents the workers, says the university's offer doesn't go far enough, and they are still planning to strike from January 22nd to the 26th, and there will be more details to come on that. Happening now, Sacramento City Council's first regular meeting since Sean Laloe resigned is underway, and the council member resigned last Thursday after he was indicted last month by a federal grand jury on fraud charges relating to his Viva supermarket chain. And ABC 10's Luke Cleary is live at City Hall. And Luke, I got to ask you, does the City Council have a plan for filling Laloe's seat yet?
Yeah, Alex, Mayor Steinberg got right into that at the top of the meeting. He outlined a plan discussed by the council in a closed session before this full session got underway. More on that in just a moment, but let me paint the picture for you. In this first meeting with an empty District 2 chair, Sean Laloe resigning last week, the placard was gone. Now, as you mentioned, in December, a federal grand jury indicted Laloe and his grocery store's manager with conspiracy, using false immigration documents, and falsifying records to get COVID-19 relief money at his Viva supermarket chain. It's important to point out here that Laloe has pleaded not guilty, and he defied calls to resign for weeks before finally relenting, vacating the seat last Thursday. And then that brings us back to the solution that the mayor presented last week and that the council agreed upon. This being a general election year, they have the ability to appoint a successor to hold the seat. In the meantime, they've decided not to do that until the March 5th primary. There are 8 candidates on the ballot, and if any one of them gets an outright majority, they can go ahead and appoint them early so they can get a head start in the District 2 seat. If nobody gets a majority, things get just a little more complicated. They outlined a plan for that as well, and in the meantime, Mayor Steinberg says that he and the other council members will pull together to help represent District 2 in the meantime. Alex.
All right, Luke, thank you so much. And the city is taking a critical vote tonight on raising the salary of City Manager Howard Chan. We will have more on that coming up on Late News tonight at 11. All right, let's talk about retail theft, something we've covered a lot here on To The Point. And in an effort to address retail theft, dozens of elected officials from across the state gathered at the Capitol today. The group showed their support for 2 recently proposed bills that would help address the issue. So we have Assembly Bill 1772 that would revise the definition of shoplifting and require harsher punishments for those convicted of retail theft. And then we have Assembly Bill 1787, and that would make revisions to Proposition 47.
Retail crime is an emotional issue for many of our constituents. Business owners feel fear for their livelihoods, workers fear for their well-being, and members of the public worry that it may no longer be safe or convenient to frequent their neighborhood stores. And when the largest retailers abandon an area because of theft and growing cost of retail crime, it also impacts locally owned businesses as well.
The bills are expected to be heard in early February. Meantime, the Assembly Select Committee on Retail Theft is continuing to meet with hard-hit cities. And tonight, we are continuing to follow the state's affordable housing crisis. Our Alicia Machado has more on what the city of Roseville is doing to add more homes.
All hands on deck in West Roseville. Construction workers making way for new affordable housing.
So we're at Hayden Parkway Apartments. This parcel houses 2 affordable projects.
Roseville housing manager Tricia Isom gave ABC 10 a tour of the complex that will include 94 affordable units and an additional 59 at a workforce housing project on the same site called Prospera at Fittiment. In just 6 months, this construction site will look something like this. Prospera set to be ready in July 2024 and Hayden Parkway in May, with more affordable housing in the works.
We have a total of 1,400 units that are in production right now, under construction.
And units are in high demand. Isom says the last time they opened pre-applications for rental assistance, the city received over 9,000 applications in 1 week. For a home to be considered affordable, a household shouldn't pay more than 30% of their monthly income on rent and utilities.
The rates will be somewhere between $300 per unit and about $700.
Applicants must make between 30 to 60% of the area median income to qualify. For instance, around $22,000 to $45,000 per year for one person, or between $32,000 to $64,000 for a family of 4. This based on 2023 federal housing income limits for the area.
People can be hesitant at first when they hear affordable housing is coming to their area. We don't typically hear from people after the fact. Our projects are they're beautiful, they're well managed, and so we don't typically have the issues that you hear about with crime and things like that.
In Old Town Roseville, a complex known as Junction Crossing is accepting applications. The project includes 80 affordable units, ranging in price from $500 to $1,300 for studios and one-bedrooms. Another project is in the works to provide housing for the homeless, converting a former hotel in Lead Hill.
And the city of Roseville has the goal of ensuring 10% of all of its housing units built are affordable. The city says proposals for another 700 units are up for review. All right, coming up onto the point, the push to solve a 32-year-old murder mystery. Investigators say that they need your help.
Still tracking that weather system pulling in for the midweek outlook. A winter storm warning going into effect in just a couple hours.
Plus, new details on the secretive hospitalization of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And former President Donald Trump is back in court, why he thinks he deserves immunity. Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods with our forecast. Dry here in the valley, but Sierra, snow's still lingering a little bit.
Yeah, just not as much of a break. Here in the valley, as you mentioned, it is dry right now, and we're going to see basically dry conditions overnight, even some patchy frost early tomorrow, but those snow showers lingering into the Sierra. And in fact, it becomes quite heavy with our snowfall overnight tonight with that cold punch of air moving on through. That's going to drop that snow line down to about 2,500 feet. Winter storm warning going into effect very early Wednesday morning and now lingers into our Thursday morning. That's going to give us some pretty good accumulation. Also, major driving hazards in the Sierra. Slick, snow-covered roads, poor visibility, travel delays, chain controls, and possible road closures as well. Total snowfall will come in anywhere from about 1 to 24 inches of snow. Highest elevations at about 36 inches of snow. Not a huge rain producer, less than 1/10 of an inch of rain coming our way by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon. Snow continues for the morning commute. Not much to contend with for the valley. We'll get a slight chance of some light showers coming through during the midday hours, and then it's out of here for the valley. Now for the Sierra, it's going to linger through about 8 p.m. and then start to wind down as we head into the overnight hours. Another weather system right behind it, though. Highs tomorrow near 30 for the Sierra. We're in the 30s and 40s down the hill. There you can see Pollock Pines at 35. We'll get some snow for tomorrow. 56 for San Francisco, 57 for Rio Vista. Traveling into the valley, highs will warm into the low to mid 50s for most of us. Not too much sunshine for tomorrow. It's going to be a mixed bag of weather for the next 5 days or so. For the regional outlook, you can see more rain and snow showers returning Saturday into early Sunday. And for the valley forecast, warmer next week. This is our cold week for us. We've got on and off showers, though, for the next 10 days.
All right, Monica, thank you. Make sure you stay with us. We still have a lot of news ahead of the break. A 32-year-old murder mystery connected to the Happy Face killer. The push to identify a woman killed in California. Plus, we'll also be talking about the Secretary of State back in Israel, trying to find a way forward in Gaza. Tonight, investigators are asking for your help to solve a 32-year-old murder mystery. They are desperately trying to find the name of a woman who was killed by one of the country's most notorious criminals. Officials in Riverside County, California, are releasing these images, hoping to identify the only remaining unidentified victim of convicted serial killer Keith Hunter Jesperson.
Easily able to kill her and just dump her on the side of the road like she was trash, and she's not, and she deserves dignity and respect.
The body of the woman known as Claudia was discovered along Highway 95 in August of 1992. Jesperson was referred to as the Happy Face killer because he drew smiley faces on letters to the media and police. He confessed to murdering Claudia and 7 other women.
Jesperson is currently serving multiple life sentences. This woman is the last of all his victims to remain unidentified.
It's believed Claudia was hitchhiking, eventually getting into a truck with Jesperson.
This would be Claudia's last meal. After eating, the two had a heated argument in Jesperson's truck. this is where he killed her.
Authorities say advances in DNA technology, the woman's remains, and a recent jailhouse interview with Jesperson have helped, adding that Claudia may not have been her real name.
She is described as a white female with fair complexion. She was around 25 to 35 years old at the time of her death. She was about 5 feet 7 inches tall with medium build. She likely had brown or dyed blonde hair.
Also releasing images of a rendering of the shirt she was wearing when she was found, and a distinct tattoo, 2 small dots on the left side of her right thumb.
Even though this killer is behind bars and never going to get out, this victim has an identity, is a real person, and we want to make sure that we give her back her identity and give closure to these families.
And genealogists were able to determine some of Claudia's relatives, including her father, who they say is now deceased. They say other relatives found are half-siblings, but they weren't aware Claudia existed, so they haven't been able to help. Investigators in Florida recently used the same DNA technology to identify one of Jesperson's victims found in 1994. And we're learning more tonight about Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's health. The Pentagon confirmed today that Austin was treated for prostate cancer in December, which led to a urinary tract infection and serious intestinal complications. Senior administration and defense officials were not told for days about his hospitalization or his cancer, and the White House is now ordering the review of cabinet protocols for delegating authority after the fallout from Austin's undisclosed hospitalization. Also happening in Washington, a panel of judges are considering whether to dismiss former President Donald Trump's federal election interference case based on his claim of presidential immunity. Trump, who pleaded not guilty to charges accusing him of criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election results, voluntarily showed up to his hearing today and once again claimed that he did nothing wrong. Morgan Norwood has the latest tonight.
Former President Donald Trump defiant, once again stressing that he's entitled to presidential immunity in his federal election interference case.
As a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple. And if you don't, as an example, if this case were lost on immunity and I did nothing wrong.
With just days until the Iowa caucus, Trump skipping the campaign trail, instead voluntarily showing up to court in Washington as a 3-judge panel heard arguments on whether the former president is immune from prosecution on charges that he plotted to overturn the results of the 2020 election.
To authorize the prosecution of a president for his official acts would open a Pandora's box from which this nation may never recover.
The panel appeared highly skeptical of the former president's immunity argument.
I think it's paradoxical to say that his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal laws.
Thank you very much.
As his opponents stump in Iowa, Trump is holding on to a commanding 30-point lead and fundraising off his court appearance today in D.C., urging supporters to defend him against what his campaign is calling never-ending witch hunts.
He's now fundraising off of it as well, saying falsely that he was forced off the campaign trail. He likes this. He likes the counter-programming, and it is unusual, to say the least, to spend the week before the Iowa caucuses as the frontrunner and not actually be in Iowa at all.
And this is just one of 2 court appearances we'll see from the former president this week. Trump says he will voluntarily show up to court in New York on Thursday for a hearing in his civil fraud case. Right now to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Israel today, speaking with leaders on the post-war future of Gaza. And Blinken sitting down with Israel's prime minister as the Biden administration is calling on Israel to scale back its war in Gaza and do more to ease Palestinian suffering. Blinken also again calling for the creation of a Palestinian state.
Everywhere I went, I found leaders who were determined to prevent the conflict that we're facing now from spreading.
Blinken says the 4 Arab countries and Turkey have agreed to start planning for the reconstruction and governance of Gaza once the war ends. Next on To the Point, the story of survival. The moments a woman was rescued after days being trapped in a truck. Finally, tonight, we want to share a story of survival. In Southern California, a woman survived several days being trapped in a truck Just take a look at these moments that crews pulled her out of the truck off the cliff. Now, it took a few hours for crews to pull up the mangled Ford Ranger. The driver survived for 5 days in the cold, and rescuers say a hiker spotted the truck and driver on Sunday and then called 911 for help. The driver reportedly swerved to avoid a deer, drove off the road, and fell 100 feet. She was airlifted for medical treatment and remarkably is going to be okay. An incredible story. All right, before we go, a quick reminder due to basketball tomorrow night. To the Point will be back on Thursday, but I have been working on a story for you. I sat down with Caltrans and asked why they purchased 399 Teslas as fleet vehicles. So tomorrow we show you the cars, we show you how much they cost and where your tax dollars are going. You can catch my full report tomorrow right after the game. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night. I'll see you later. Hey, it's Alex. Just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I really love hearing from everyone, and I hope that you'll stay in touch. Reach out to me on Facebook at AlexBellTV, or you can email me at tothepoint@abc10.com, or you can even send me a text message at 916-321-3310.